everyone, happy New Year's. Happy Christmas Eve. It is the 23rd of December and today is the last day of Bookmas. I can't believe we made it, guys. Honestly, I thought for a little bit there we weren't going to. But we did. I thought what better way to end off Bookmas or Vlogmas by doing the end of year book tag. I think there are so many different versions of this and so many different creators who have done this, but I have gotten my questions specifically from Mariana and Larry's videos. So both besties Mariana and Larry have done this. So I've taken some questions from what they've said and we're just gonna go through and talk about all of the books we've read this year and thoughts and what my favorites were. Starting off strong with the most disappointing read of the year. And for me, honestly, that has to be The Cruel Prince. Yeah, we're going there. Personally, I just don't think it's my kind of fantasy book. I don't think the writing style was for me. I didn't connect to it. I thought it was very underwhelming for how much hype it gets, and I think the number one criticism that people have about people who dislike the series is that it's not a romancy, it's not a romance, it's a fantasy with a very minor subplot. But I knew that going into it and it was still underwhelming. I was like, this is the Jude and Carden you're talking about? Because individually as characters, I was also like, interesting. Like Jude, I can see sort of how, you know, she progressed and why people would love her character, but I just found her quite irritating, to be honest. I'm like, what do you mean? The next thing people say to me is, oh, well, you need to read the whole series. I did. I read the whole trilogy and I read the novellas. Also, us literally getting a Christmas mug right at the end of Bookmas. The Cruel Prince was the most disappointing book for me because I thought I would love it and I just didn't. It is very fairy tale-esque, which I don't have a problem with because I love fairy tale fantasy, but I think I prefer ones more like Once Upon a Broken Heart. Yeah, this one wasn't for me. The next question is what was an underhyped book? So I have a few options for this. Let's dig out what books have I got in front of me. We're gonna say The Book of Azrael. It is popular. I think it deserves more hype. I think more people need to read this. I love having a morally grey main female character for a change who's 1,000 years old and can shift into a monster herself. It's sort of, you know, breaks the traditional typical fantasy romance mold that we're used to seeing. I also think A Kiss of Iron. This was one of the books that I think surprised me most when I was reading it with how much I was enjoying it, and I thought it deserves more hype and more love. And again, another fun fantasy romance book with a human and a fae. Riftborn is a newer release and I think that it is underhyped. It's indie published, but if you like sort of war college vibes, training, mentor, mentee, fantasy world magic, a main female character who's sort of suppressed magic powers and doesn't know how to use them, yeah. This Woven Kingdom, I think, I say it every time I pick up this book, but it deserves the same hype as Shatter Me. I know it's popular, but I think that this is her best series. I think this is her best work. I think this is so underrated. It's just so giggly and fun. And book 2 just gave me so much yearning. I loved it. She's just so good at writing banter between characters. I don't think all her characters are the same. I think she keeps it different, but the dynamics are always so fun and fresh. I went into this blind and I think you should pretty much go into it blind and just see where the story takes you because it's fun, but I am dying for book 4. As soon as book 4 is announced, I'll be there. I'll be the first pre-order. This one is already popular, but I do think it deserves way more hype than it has, and that is The Ember in the Ashes, or The Ember Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. I just love this series. I loved the ending of book 2. It's good. It's fantasy. We have 2 to 3 main characters who we sort of follow at different point of views. The world really opens up. I think this is inspired by ancient Rome, but there is like Jinn mythology in there. The atmosphere, the setting, I can just picture it like a movie. This is more like a younger adult mythical fairy tale fantasy version of something like this. I mean, they're set in completely different places, but both of these series I love and gave me similar feelings. If you took this and sort of mixed with Throne of Glass, you would get this. That's what I think. What was an overhyped book that you read? That definitely has to go to The Veiled Kingdom. I think when book 2 came out, a lot of people sort of felt the same way that I felt about book 1. Like, I thought book 1 was good, but I thought it was extremely short and it sort of went from 0 to 100. Holly Renee, I think all her books, from my knowledge, I've not read any of her other work other than book 1 and 2 in, you know, this series, but I do believe that she writes shorter stories, and I don't think it works as well for fantasy or fantasy romance. I think what she could have done was maybe combine all 3 books and put them into one to make like a one really good story and had like a standalone. I just don't think that after the... Oh my god, there's a huge spider. Oh, give me a minute, that's terrifying. Okay, I'm back. Situation under control. What was I saying? I don't like DNFing books, and I don't like DNFing series if I've started them, and I don't like hate them. I have DNF'd very little book series, to be honest. If the book is as short as the other ones, then I might just read it just to wrap it up if it's the last one. If it's not gonna be the last one, no, I'm not picking that up. A book that surprised you? Oh, okay. So it turns out I like dark romance. Who would have thought? I've been getting into darker romantasy, so I feel like the jump isn't that steep. Like, we probably could have seen this coming. You guys also tell me to read dark romance. I've been asked to read The Predator. I've been asked to read Devil's Night. In terms of my dark romance history, I have only read the Mindfuck series and the Maid series, and that is it. Just those 2 books. I would say they're diet dark compared to this. I think they're a good intro. Like, if you want to get into dark romance, read both of these. I will say though that like the dark romance I'm reading right now, we listen and we don't judge, guys, okay? It is a jump. It's not just like a little skip, hop and a step. It's a leap. It's definitely not for everyone. So don't read this book series if you haven't read dark romance and you don't like dark romance, but it is The Legacy of Gods by Rena Kent. Oh my... This book series has reignited my love, my obsession with reading. Oh my god, I feel like there is very few book series or books that I've read that have made me feel this way. This is top 5 books I've ever read. This is officially in my top. Now, I don't have a favorite book from the series yet because I'm still reading it. Basically, let's go back for a second, okay? The ADHD is really ADHDing. Legacy of Gods by Rena Kent follows a group of guys. I keep comparing it to the Zodiac Academy. The Zodiac Academy follows 4 heirs, 4 guys that are heirs, and they're all main characters in this overarching story. And they're all a little bit twisted. They're fey, they're ruthless, they're cutthroat, right? If you take the heirs from Zodiac Academy and then put them in the real world and make them actual psychopaths and insane, I would say they're morally black. They're not even morally grey. There is a line in these books of morality. It is hazy. And the characters a lot of the time will say one thing out loud, but then in their inner dialogue they are saying the complete opposite. So it's definitely not for everyone at all. These books are set in a college situation in the UK between like 2 sort of like rival schools. One's like an American school, one's a British one. I don't really get how that whole situation works, but you take the heirs, you get the heathens. They are mafia princes. It sounds so fucking silly. Like, it sounds ridiculous. And because it's an interconnected standalone, there's like 2 sort of groups of people and characters across these 2 schools, and they're all like rivals and enemies, and you see a lot of back and forth of enemies to lovers and things like that, but they're dark romances. There's crazy stuff that happens in this, and it is explicit, but you're dealing with sociopaths and psychopaths. Like, the main character in book 1, the main male character, is an actual psychopath. These books have been traditionally republished in the UK, and I think from what I've read online, there has been editing and amendments made, especially to like the first 2 chapters in God of Malice, book 1. I think when it was indie published, it was more intense. There's talk of abuse, there's talk of assault, there's talk of murdering stuff, adult natures and fetishes and kinks and masked men that love to chase women with very dark thoughts. I have ordered the books. I'm reading them on Kindle. They're not on Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately. Only the first 3 books in the series are out. I think there's 6, maybe, and I think she's writing a 7th, I don't know, but this is like a 2nd gen series, so there's a whole Rena Kent universe that you... Why is this video is just turning into like half an hour of me talking about my love for Rena Kent? But there's this whole Rena Kent universe where you can read a spin-off series and interconnected standalones that follow people. So these characters in The Legacy of Gods are children of books from one of her other series. I didn't read the other series first. You will see me read God of Malice in an upcoming vlog. Trust me, it's a good one. There's something in those books that's just addictive. You're reading these books and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck am I reading? And then you're going, what does that say about me as a person? And then you go, no, this stuff in real life gives me the ick, but it's good trash. And then you keep reading and you go, and then you go, Book's done. What? I need the next one. I could not put it down. There have been 3 series that I have read, or 4 series that I've read in my entire life where I've picked them up and I have stopped everything I'm doing. I want to cancel plans. I don't even want to brush my hair, which is so unlike me. Like, I want to get up in the morning and I just want to read this book. I will stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning reading this book. I am just tunnel vision with these books. I think about them when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm having a shower, when I'm driving to Pilates, when I'm in my Pilates class. These characters in the world feel real and it's so addictive. I love that feeling. I love when I read a book and I just get pure escapism and hyperfixation and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I love being a reader. This feeling, this joy. Mariana sent me like 22 edits in a row on TikTok of the books because I'm like meeting one of her favorite characters ever. And I'm just like, I love it. I love being able to sit here and talk about how this feeling that reading gives me. Is it absolutely insane that a dark romance is giving me this? Yes. I never thought I'd be a dark romance girly. Like, what is happening? Anyways, yeah. So I read ACTA, Throne of Glass, and then Zodiac Academy, and they are the only sort of series that I've been like, I need to binge it right now. I was filming 2 different reading vlogs. And then I picked up God of Malice and they have both been put on pause because I need to binge the whole series. I've said before, like, I don't think I can love a book series or books or become obsessed with them and really have that like emotional connection with them if there isn't some type of, not trauma, but like extreme emotions in it. Whether it makes me feel so happy and it's such a happy story, or it's sad, or I can connect to a character because we have similar struggles or similar thoughts, or I can see myself in them, or it's just really fun to read. I love a big group of fan family and I love getting everyone's perspectives and point of views and cameos and interconnected stuff. So the Chestnut Spring series is another one that's like my favorite because it brings me so much joy and happiness and I can connect to the characters and I love that whole family and it feels real. On the other end of the spectrum, we now have Legacy of Gods, which has so much trauma and just dark stuff, but I feel the same way about both. I'm gonna reel it back in, guys. No one can ever tell me that reading is not fun. If you're sitting there telling me that reading is boring, you aren't reading the right book. I just love it. I love it. I could talk about this book series for hours, but it's not one that I would recommend. I just think you have to be a very specific type of reader to go into these and enjoy them. And if you're not and you don't like darker stuff, then you won't like this. I don't know about you guys, when I read a book, I'm like giggling and laughing and banter and I'm like, oh my god, I love this man. And then if anyone like that ever interacts with me in real life, straight to jail. Ick city. That's where we'll leave it. Anyways, what was I saying? What was the question? Oh yeah, a book that surprised me. God of Malice really surprised me. But another book that really surprised me that's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is Daydream by Hannah Grace. I hadn't read Icebreaker and I hadn't read Wildfire because I just heard that they were like spicy books and I don't like spicy books. I don't like smut. Now for me, smut is just spice. That's it. Like, you'll have characters and they just spice. I need plot, I need character development, I need conflict, I need things to be happening. And if there's spicy scenes, that's great. Even better when they're not back to back. So I just never picked up Icebreaker because there were so many people on TikTok being like, this is the spiciest thing I've ever read, like blah blah blah. But Daydream, there was no like spicy scenes and stuff until really later on in the book and they were very minimal. I have been told that this is the least spicy of them all and the more emotional, communicative story. There is so much communication in this. There are so many neurodivergent coded characters. I see myself in both of the characters and I loved it and I fell in love with Hannah Grace's writing and the way that she can take thoughts and feelings and experiences that I've had and put them into such simple words that just make sense. It was such a validating read and then I really enjoyed their story. It was very different to anything that I had ever read in the romance space itself and it followed I personally think a different formula and I was on this ride, so really love that one. Your favorite book couples of the year. I feel like some of these couples could spoil books or book series because some of them aren't romances, they're fantasies that have romances in them. So if you have not read Throne of Glass, Zodiac Academy, A Shadow in the Ember, then skip to this part on screen, like skip forward a few seconds because there are characters in those series that I will talk about and I will spoil, but others are quite obviously love interests. So Aelin and Rowan, I love them. Darius and Tori, from Zodiac Academy. They are my favorite couple in that book. Serafina and Nyktos from Flesh and Fire. I really love Lana Myers and Logan from the Mindfuck series. I just think there are two characters that are perfect for each other. Speaking of perfect for each other, Winter and Theo from Reckless, one of my favorites. Also love Rune and Lydia. And then finally, I really love Charlie and Nora from Book Lovers. I think about them all the time. And then my favorite main characters of the year are Aelin and Nesta, because I have so many tattoos for them. I literally have their quotes on my wrists. They are my two girlies. They are two characters that I just adore. And then main male character is obviously Nyktos. I love him. New favorite author you discovered this year? Well, first proper year of reading, guys, so we have so many new authors that we have discovered. But my favorite authors from this year, my top ones: Sabaa Tahir, JLA, SJM, Elsie Silva, Rena Kent. Love you, Rena Kent. Amber V. Nicole, Kaylee Smith, Suzanne Peckham and Caroline Valenti. So many. An author that didn't work out for you this year. I'm just gonna say Holly Black. I don't think I'll read any of her books moving forward. There's a few authors that aren't necessarily my favorite, but I'll still read some of their other books because it can be like a hit or a miss. But for her, I just don't think she's an author for me, and I don't think it's fair for me to read her books and then continue to say it's not for me. I'm not going to sit here and ruin it for anyone else. What is the happiest book you read this year? The entire Chestnut Spring series. Elsie Silva just writes the happiest escapism books for me, like cowboy romance, 10 out of 10. The setting, the vibe, the atmosphere, the characters, the different dynamics between each character. They're so different, but they work so well, so perfectly. It's like every single one of her characters was specifically made for one another. What was the saddest book I read this year? I ugly cried so much over this book. It is so upsetting. It was a beautiful ending to the story, but my goodness did it hurt. It hurt so much. A book you haven't stopped thinking about. We all know I love this book. I never shut up about it. It was one of my favorite reads of the year, and I have reread it already. Also A Shadow in the Ember. I think about this book series like once a week. I think about the Zodiac Academy quite regularly. I think about Throne of Glass like every single day, as well as Acta. I surprisingly think about Neverkeep a lot. Just can't stop thinking about the way that that book ended, and I'm very excited for the next one. Unpopular books that you loved. I've got two. I'm gonna say Powerless by Elsie Silva first. Her whole series is popular, but I was so hesitant to pick up this book after finishing the book before it. I think I went a while in between reading the books because I just heard that so many people were disappointed with this one and it slowed down the series for them. It was a flop. I put it on my Instagram story, like, someone convinced me to read this book because I'm just not wanting to pick it up. And so many people messaged me and said they skipped it. This was one of my favorite books in the whole series. This is one of the books that I think is the least loved in the Chestnut Spring series, and it's one of my most favorites. Love Jasper and I love Sloane, and the whole friends to lovers trope, didn't think it was for me. Elsie Silva can take any trope and anything that I dislike in books and then write them, and I love them. Yeah, this one surprised me. And then another one is From Blood and Ash. I was really hoping that I would love this going into it, but I had heard such mixed things of you either love or hate her writing style and the way she writes and her storytelling, and personally I love it. I have so much fun with this, especially because it led me to the prequel series, and reading these two series in tandem together, one of my favorite reading experiences ever. A book you thought you'd love but didn't. I'm gonna say The Stars Are Dying. I thought I would love this, and it just did not hit the same for me. I just found it very confusing. I really struggled to follow along with this book, but I know a lot of people love it, and book 2's coming out. I probably won't read book 2 because I struggled so much with book 1. So it just, yeah, unfortunately wasn't for me. A book with the most unique concept you read this year. I think a lot of the books that I read are very similar. I'm gonna say, I don't have a physical copy of A Touch of Golden Madness yet, but we're gonna say that. This is the prequel series book, The Embrace of Steel and Sorrow, and it's because of the magic system in this, and then also the way that the author is writing two series in tandem. So this is a prequel trilogy, and it's being written and published sort of in a staggered way with the main series, A Touch of Golden Madness. So you have to read A Touch of Golden Madness first, then you go into this one, then we'll go back into A Touch of Golden Madness, then we'll go back into this trilogy, then we go back, you know, like that. It's fantasy, but it's more post-apocalyptic dystopian with fantasy powers in the world. So it's set in USA, sort of in a modern day. There's elements of fantasy in it, and the magic system in this with the kinetic and the elemental magic is one of my favorites. I really love it. Goodreads 2024 reading goal reflection. So currently I have read 240 books out of 250. My original goal for the year I think was like 48 books, and then I bumped it up to 100, and then I bumped it up to 150, and then I bumped it up to 250. I honestly just wanted to read 4 books a month when I started the year, and we do like 20 books a month. Is my goal for next year going to be 250? No. I'll probably just put it at like 100 or 150. For me, a reading goal is not something that like I need to hit or need to make. I do think that I will hit 250 books by the end of the year, especially at the rate at which I'm binging the Legacy of God series. I think I've done pretty well. I think I read 5 books total last year. With 2025 coming up, I did upload 2 Bookmas videos ago, my 25 books that I want to read in 2025 and anticipated upcoming new releases that I'm excited for. There were like new releases that are coming out in 2025 that I didn't include in there. I just put the ones that we have sort of confirmed dates for, but there are so many other new series that I'm excited to finish and complete. Like hopefully we get Quicksilver #2, we get the Kindra's Curse saga finished, we get Metal Slinger #2. I'm also still waiting for A Kiss of Iron, that sort of trilogy to finish up. There are so many good reads coming into it, and I think that now that I have sort of cracked open the door into a new genre of dark romance, there are so many amazing authors and books and stuff out there for me to read that I think we're gonna have a really fun reading year next year. I think fantasy and romantasy will always be my top one. Very excited to sort of open up what I'm reading, delve into some more genres. I'm definitely a mood reader. I just sort of read what I want, when I can. So thank you so much guys for listening to me yap about books again. You just can't get me to shut up once I start. But that is it. This is gonna be the last vlog until Christmas now, because Christmas is like 2 days away. It won't be my last video for the year. I may have a video or 2 coming up after Christmas. And that is it. I hope you guys have a very happy holidays, and I will see you after Christmas.